Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how you can take your love of food photography and make it into a business. So I'm Daniel Norton, I'm a photographer here in New York. I make these videos about business, about philosophy, about technique and photography and video. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, please subscribe. So I get lots and lots of requests about, kind of how can I do this, how can I do that as far as business and marketing and stuff. So I thought I'd make a few videos like this where I create a template or kind of a fake business, and we'll just kind of walk through. I'm just going to go through the process that if I was in this situation as a photographer starting out, this is kind of the process I would take to get there. So I thought, let's do food photography. It's also something that I don't really do, but I know a lot of food photographers. So let's say that you have decided to do food photography. Now, depending on why, right? We've talked about this before too. What are you trying to do? What's the reason for you doing it? There might be a lot of angles you can take. But in this case, I'm going to take the example of somebody who is like a foodie, likes to go out to eat. They go to restaurants and stuff. And that's kind of how they started. So let's say that you're that person, right? So you are somebody who likes to travel. You like to eat at various different restaurants, to try different types of food, and you start taking pictures of your food because it's kind of fun, right? And then you think, hey, I really enjoy doing this, and maybe I'll write about it, whatever, and you're going to do a blog, and maybe I can somehow get paid. So there's lots of ways to do this, and because we're kind of laying the whole thing out, and I'm assuming, that you want to do a business, we're going to kind of start with the end. Even though for most people, I think this happens more like they'll do some of these steps before they even consider it as a business. So, truck going by. So, number one, once you're thinking of the business part of it, you have to think who is going to pay you. I say this all the time. Make images that people want, put them in front of people that will pay you. So who's going to pay you for food shots of like prepared food? The most obvious people will be restaurants, right? So let's start from scratch. So we enjoy shooting. We go to restaurants a lot. You maybe at first start using your phone, whatever you're going to do. I mean, that's not really super important in the beginning. And really even in the end, because if you can produce the images that people want and the phone's what you use, the phone's what you use, right? So let's say that you start going to restaurants and you start taking pictures of your food and you start putting them on, let's say, your Instagram. So you do that mixed in with your other pictures of your cat and, the sightseeing or whatever, and you see that you're getting a lot of hits on it. So the first step that I would do if I wanted to kind of make this into something more serious is I would start a second page for that. Ultimately, we've talked about this and other things. You're going to want to have like a website and stuff, but let's just start with Instagram. I think it's a good way to start. You will start an Instagram that's just for your food pictures, right? It's easy enough to have 2 accounts on Instagram. You can just flip back and forth. You shoot whatever, and then you put the best ones on the food page. So you start this Instagram, and when you're out there shooting the pictures, right? Now you're going to really be, not that you weren't trying to take the best pictures before, for sure, but now you're really targeting, right? So you want to actually think, hey, let's do the best job we can. Maybe you're going to bring a light around, right? You could have like a little light. You could have, I should have a light in my hand when I do that. You could have a little light. You could maybe even use another phone display, whatever. They make lots of little things like this. Just did something with Lume Cube. You guys, if you look back, you'll probably find it on some of my social. But, a little tiny light you can keep in your pocket. You could do some kind of like a little panel. Profoto has that C system. You pick what you think is going to work for you with the tools that you're using. So in this case, a phone, right? Really, if you're using a phone and you're not going to flash it, almost any LED light will be the way to go, right? Because it's going to be small, it's going to be relatively inexpensive, and it's going to be able to something you can carry with you. So you're going to want to, and you want to be relatively strong because you want to be able to soften it. So you're going to want to add some, diffusion to it, but at the same time, not so bright that when you're in a restaurant, it's like ridiculous, right? So this is where you're starting, right? So here you are. Now you start taking better pictures. So now you're going to post your picture. You're going to maybe put the name of the dish, right, in the description. So make sure you keep notes. You're going to tag the location, right? You're going to tag these restaurants because they're going to start seeing that somebody is going to their restaurant and tagging it, and that's going to make a difference, right? You might even, so you put that on your Instagram, you might even start a Yelp account and start doing reviews with uploading pictures, right? This is, again, going to get this motion going where the restaurants that you go to will start to recognize you as somebody who's going there and who's giving reviews and who's taking pictures that are actually very nice, right? So you're going to do this for a bit until you start to build up a bit of following, to start to move forward there. then you're basically going to approach the restaurants. I mean, that's the simplest way to do it, right? There's a lot of different ways to do this. Typically, if it's a smaller restaurant, it's probably easy enough just to go to like the manager, like the top, manager, possibly the owner, and just let them know you're a photographer. You've done all this stuff. At this point, I would go in person, I guess I should say. You could, if you're tagging them like crazy and they haven't reached out to you, then go in person, right? Because maybe they don't have a strong social presence. So, which ties in, right? So now you go there, you set up a meeting. I would at this point, I know that all this time you've been using Instagram, at this point I probably would print some pictures. Because I think that when you're making a presentation, you want to have something physical. If you don't want to do that, then get like an iPad. I wouldn't do a computer because computers are always like you have to put it somewhere, you want it to be simple. So get an iPad, make a photo gallery of the pictures that you've made of their food and maybe similar stuff. Have that ready to show them, right? Because in theory, they've already seen your stuff on some level, but maybe they don't recognize the name with it. So you're going to sit down, you're going to get that meeting, right? How do I get the meeting, Daniel? You're going to call people and ask. I mean, it's that simple, right? They're either going to want to meet with you or they're not. I mean, that's just how it works. If you're on top of it but not overly aggressive, most people will meet with you because why not? It doesn't hurt them to meet. So you meet with them, you show them your work. Now you've got to figure out what you're pitching. Now I wouldn't do this. I'd figure this out before you go to the meeting, obviously. What is it that you want from them? Maybe you're going to go in there and you're going to say, let's say they don't have an Instagram. You're going to say, hey, I noticed you have an Instagram with no pictures on it, or you don't have an Instagram. I could start this for you. I could, I could set up the page. I could maintain it, answer questions, etc. And I could provide photography for it. And for this, you're going to need, obviously they're going to want to pay you, but you're going to need to set up a time to actually do like more kind of quote real photo shoots. That's because they're going to want even better pictures, right? Because you've been doing a good job making photos of the stuff that's just served to you, which is usually great. But when the chef, if the chef knows you're going to make a photo of it, they're going to be even more on top of making it perfect, So at this point, you have an in, right? So you could also, depending on the style of restaurant, maybe the restaurant doesn't have, if it's more like a, let's say you're going after a restaurant that's more like a local sub shop, or like one of those kind of restaurants that have pictures of the food on the wall. You could, offer to reshoot those pictures if they're not very good. But as I've mentioned before in other videos, that's a careful subject to approach because you don't want to tell people that their pictures suck, even if they do. So you got to be delicate with that. So, but this is, definitely an approach, right? You go to them and you say, hey, I can start this Instagram page for you. And I think that if they don't have that they're going to, why wouldn't they want that? Assuming that that's within the budget. And what's great about this is now, if you're just starting and you love to eat out, and this is one of your favorite restaurants, you can make a choice here, right? You can say, okay, I will accept my fee, at least partially, in meals, right? Because that's going to save you money. You got to think about these things from the angle of the business might see the value in the Instagram, but at the same time, they don't have money for it, or say they'd already be doing it. Don't have money, meaning they haven't put aside money for it. So you got to be somewhat, flexible in these cases, at least for the first one or two. Because what you want to do is build up restaurants into your repertoire, right? So that now you are shooting for this restaurant, right? Let's say once a week, you're going in there, you're making photo shoots or photos, you're doing a photo shoot, and you're posting all the stuff and you're doing their Instagram. Well, you can still cross-post those pictures on your Instagram, so you're still growing your Instagram, and you're getting paid for it on some level, right? I mean, you can think of it like, well, food isn't getting paid, but at the same time, you were spending the money on the food before. So, again, think about that stuff. I'm not recommending that you work for free, but in this case, a little bit of money for maintaining the Instagram and meals might be a good way to approach your first restaurant. As you start to shoot more and more restaurants, of course, you're going to want to switch, gears and go just cash, because ultimately you don't want to just get food for pay because you can only eat so much food, probably. So yeah, you definitely want to do that, and you'll change your style, right? At first, maybe the first deal is, okay, I'm going to do your Instagram, and once a week I'll come in and get a free meal, and for that I will photograph the, me and my friends, let's say four people. I will make photos of the food just like I've been doing, and I will add those to the Instagram, and I will scour other people's Instagram for, you know, your tag, and I will repost them into the stories, stuff like that, right? So now it's like you were doing it anyway, so it's not like a lot of added work. Eventually, depending on the size of the restaurant and what's going on, you know, you may want to set up more of an elaborate photo shoot for some more like professional shots. At that point, you know, you're going to want to maybe use upgraded gear or whatever. Kind of depends on where you are. I'm not saying that you can't do that kind of stuff with very minimal gear, because you probably can. One thing that I would say is this about that kind of stuff, and people who know me probably like, but Daniel, you use all kinds of stuff, and blah, blah. Well, you know, I'm very comfortable with it. If you do everything, let's say that I'm a great photographer and I shoot drinks. Let's say we're doing bars. I shoot drinks. I go into a bar and I can make really creative shots with like one little like aluminum cube light and one little my phone, and I make these amazing shots. And then somebody hires me to shoot the bar, and I rent, you know, a medium format phase 1 camera and a bunch of Profoto broad color lights and all this. You might have trouble getting the shots that you want to get. You already know how to get them that way. So, you know, keep in mind that don't overdo it if you don't need to. You know, it really comes down to that. Work within the area that you're comfortable. So now, okay, that's fine, right? So you've got that going. Now, where do we go from here, right? Here you are. You love shooting food. You've started maybe a few Instagrams for people, and now you're running their social. You've got some, you know, some restaurants that give you, you know, free meals. Some restaurants are paying you. Maybe you do some menu stuff or some pictures they can hang on the wall, or pictures for their Yelp or whatever, you know, pictures for their website, right? You have to think about where these people might use the photos. Like they're probably going to take whatever Instagram photo you shot and use it on their website right away. But this is where you come back in, you know, this is where you're leveling up, and you're like, hey, you know what? That was fine. You know, I shot it with my friends eating dinner, but if we come in you know, early on a Monday when you guys aren't open or whatever, and the chef can come in and make me some actual meals where I can take the time to actually shoot them and have it supervised, we can make some really beautiful shots for your website. And again, that's more money. And now you're working, you're going from place to place. You can find other blogs that people have, like bigger blogs that take separate writers and stuff, and maybe you start using the photos in the blogs. It helps, you know, get paid for it. It helps push the restaurants that you're working for. It helps you make money. The pictures are getting circulated more. It's really adding value. Eventually, next step up from this, assuming you want to go that far, is to start going after like the real meat of it, like the magazines or cookbooks and stuff like that. And that's just where you would go. You know, you got to figure out, you do it the same way. You make connections. If you have an amazing food blog and you can get in touch with somebody at, like, you know, a food magazine, then you just reach out and say, hey, I want to shoot for your magazine. Here, I would be a little bit more careful about the equipment. You know, you want to make sure that you can definitely shoot stuff that's going to be magazine quality, which is a different level of shooting, so don't burn yourself out there with that. But that's the next step up, and maybe that's a whole other conversation. But hopefully this helped. I'm going to do a few of these. While I'm all fired up to do it, so I'll probably do a few before, you know, before this one actually goes out. I'll probably do another one tomorrow or something. So if that's the case, you know, let me see. You get to see some no matter what, but hopefully this is helpful if you want to see different stuff. If you like this idea of me kind of going through like the steps you might take, let me know. If you don't like this, let me know. If you have very specific questions, let me know. Let's get some comments. Let's get a conversation going. Right? What I want to know is what people are doing. Who out there shoots food? Do you do this? Do you shoot for blogs? Do you shoot just for your pleasure? You know, what do you do? And what equipment do you use? I'd be curious there, because I think that's kind of a fun thing too, would be to figure out what is the minimal kind of package. I'm becoming more and more obsessed with these, like, you know, using more constant lights and like smaller stuff, and or even not smaller stuff, but single lights and things like that. I'm kind of shifting gears myself, so, you know, let's see what people are doing. Anyways, if you haven't subscribed, please do, and I'll see you next time.